one of the things that we want to talk about this week is it was kind of interesting because you've got new Ottawa Senators in new places. Mathieu Joseph is now a St. Louis Blue, a Blues brother, if you will, because his brother Pierre-Olivier signed the very next day after Mathieu was signed or was traded there. He signed a 1-year contract there. Blues brothers. I'm pleased with that. Then you also had Joonas Korpisalo and Jakob Chychrun having their Zoom calls with their new teams. So the thing that grabbed me with Korpisalo and Chychrun, it was the fact that they kind of, I don't know, they said all the right things, but they talked about distractions.
Mm-hmm.
Like how much of an impact do you think, and they both brought this up, the coaching change, the ownership change, the GM change, how much of an impact does that truly have, do you think, on a professional hockey player?
I don't think the ownership change should have any effect on a professional hockey player, except maybe if the new guy comes in and he's cheap and some of your perks are taken away. I don't think a GM change should really have any effect on a player. I understand the coaching change. I get that. But the coaching change came late in the year. In the case of Korpisalo, he started the year with an owner who was new. Okay, the same coach, the same GM. They weren't gone for a little bit after he started. And he didn't exactly start great. He didn't have a great middle, and he didn't finish great. So your numbers were almost consistently the same all year long, regardless of who the coach, the GM, or the owner was. So I don't buy it with Korpisalo. In the case of Chychrun, I kind of understand it affected his ice time was probably affected, his usage from a coach. There was much more an effect on him from the coaching change, but ownership change, come on. It just sounds like excuses to me. Get out there and do your job.
Yeah, I can only just speak from what I saw. And I think to myself, yeah, the ownership thing would actually have energized me to see because there's a guy that's willing to commit time, financial investment, a professional demeanor, like particularly for the guys who've been here for a while. I guess with Chychrun and Korpisalo, they never really got a sense of the old ownership when it was really out there doing its thing. I'll leave it at that. Whereas, some of the guys who've been long-term, like a Brady Tkachuk, I think he probably was energized by Andlauer's arrival. So I wiped that completely off the map. Regardless, the ownership shouldn't be a huge thing unless it gets really negative upon arrival. The GM thing, I feel kind of the same way. How much impact does a GM have on a player's psyche or the organization of the team? I didn't see a dramatic, change in anything. The only thing that Steve Staios did as the new GM was bring in Boris Tkachuk. That's not really going to unsettle a professional hockey player, or at least it shouldn't. The one thing I will say is coaching would have been a different one, because regardless of how you feel about either head coach, it's such a different personality. Not just the hockey mechanics, and those were, we talked about the defensive details that Jacques Martin was supposedly going to introduce. The standings didn't show that it got much better in that area, but I'm thinking more about the personality of the guy. And, just it would almost be like, because with DJ Smith, he was such a raw cheerleader kind of guy. And then you have the ultra stoic Jacques Martin. The first time Jacques Martin was here, we never were privy to anything he had to say in the dressing room. Now in social media, with the marketing team in there recording his post-game speeches, it was like, blah. And so from a player's perspective, that would be a big change to go from DJ Smith, I think, to Jacques Martin. So that's one area where I'll go a little bit with you down the path to say that might have been a distraction.
But still, how much of a distraction should that be? And in the case of Jacques Martin, if there was any positive, it's that there was more of an emphasis placed on structure, on playing the game properly. And if anybody needed help in those areas, it was defensemen and goaltenders. So really, should a goaltender be distracted by the fact that the coach wants to work harder on defense and harder on details? Should a defenseman be upset and distracted because there's going to be a little more emphasis placed on playing the game properly on the other side of the puck? No, I'm sorry. I firmly believe this is just an excuse. I really do. I think guys are just saying something for the sake of saying something. You get into a Zoom interview and, oh my God, what am I going to say? What's my answer to this question? And I really think that that's what it was. There were distractions. Yeah. Okay, fine. Whatever.
Yeah. I think goalies in particular, they're on an island no matter what's happening, to the good or the bad. They're just doing their own thing. And I really don't particularly, I agree with you. In Korpisalo's case, I'm not seeing it at all. But moving on to other former Ottawa Senators who will ply their trade elsewhere next season. Mathieu Joseph is now a St. Louis Blue, and kind of a neat thing in that the Blues went out the very next day. And are they doing that with this in mind? The very next day after you acquire Mathieu Joseph, and you didn't have to give up much for him, or you didn't have to give up anything for him. You bring in Mathieu Joseph, and the very next day you sign his brother to a 1-year contract. Pierre-Olivier Joseph.
That's pretty cool.
It is pretty cool. Do you think, do you think bloodlines play into that they decided, it might be kind of cool to have a brother act here?
Well, not to the point that it would impact their decision if it was down to, a skill level. We need this guy. We got to have this type of player. But I think that if you're looking at different guys and say, hey, this guy looks pretty good in our spot here. So does this guy. Oh, wait a minute. He's a brother. Yeah, let's get that guy. I think that maybe that factors into it. But was it a set plan? Like, did Doug Armstrong sit down and say, to start a free agency, we got to get both these guys? I don't think so. But it is kind of cool. And now they're going to change the Hyundai commercial, right? The French version of the Hyundai commercial with the Kachuk brothers is the Joseph brothers. So they got to change it and put them in the St. Louis Blues jerseys. That'll be pretty cool.
Yeah, kids still fight if they're on the same team, So, just superimpose a Blues jersey on the two of them. Superimpose. That's a very ancient term. Let's maybe Photoshop or whatever. What was I going to say now? That distracted me now thinking about that. But
are you going to segue into Senator Brother Acts?
I believe I was. Yes.
Yeah.
Do you before we get to Senators? And now you may be cheating here because I know you may have read the article because you mentioned it, having seen it on the Hockey News. THN.com/Ottawa, by the way. Can you name 3 brother acts in St. Louis? All of them, I think. And you know what? I can't. Well, there are 3 brother acts. Can you name
one's
them?
Obvious. One's obvious. The 3 Plager brothers all played in St. Louis.
That would be obvious to guys of our vintage.
Oh, sorry.
But maybe not to some of our listeners.
I remember when Gino and Paul Cavallini were there.
Yep.
I can't think of another one.
This is where I was having a caveat because I didn't actually look it up.
Okay.
I saw the stat, though, and I forget which ones because there's 6 of them. 2 of the Sutter brothers. I know Brian played there for sure. I'm not sure about the other.
You're saying, 2 Sutters at one point in time. Well, Richie and Ron became suitcases. They pretty well played everywhere especially towards the end of their career.
Yeah.
But I could see that. You could almost make that guess for most teams in the NHL, Steve. Like Darryl played his whole career in Chicago and Brian played his whole career in St. Louis. But Dwayne moved around a lot, and the twins especially moved around a lot.
And they moved around. It's like the Sedin twins. Like, what is it with NHL GMs that go, well, we got to keep the twins together? Now, the Sutter twins definitely played a part for a good chunk of their career, but they also played together for a good chunk of their career as well, if memory serves.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, I know you were born the same day. I get that, but you have to do everything together exactly. And then the way they rolled through the NHL and never played a single game apart, that was bizarre to me.
They played a lot of games apart. Whatever.
Injured.
No, they were not always on the same team together. The 2 twins, they were not always on Sedins. I'm sorry. I thought you were on the Sutter twins. Yeah, Sedins agreed. But were you really going to trade one at some point in time?
Well, you did it with the Sutters. Why not?
Well, these Sedins are a little bit better than the 2 Sutters, weren't they? I mean, they each won a scoring title. A Hart Trophy winner in there. I don't know that you were ever going to trade one of them.
I know, but the odds that you'd be able to pull it off on draft day, as Brian Burke did, to get both of them together. It truly is amazing that they were able to go wire to wire as highly touted prospects from day one and go through their whole career together and never get traded. And it's fascinating. I mean, even their stats, like their injury levels were about the same. Their stats are about the same. It was just like the same guy, photocopied.
Are their wives twins?
I don't think so.
I don't think so either. I'm kidding.
I don't think so. No. Well, though, it wouldn't shock me.
Now,
two.
Mark Stone and Cody Ceci married sisters.
The goatees going. They used to have the goatees going. Same haircuts going. Anyway, you were saying.
Mark Stone and Cody Ceci married sisters. Are they twins? I don't know, but they did. They married sisters from Brockville, I believe. They married sisters. I'm not sure if they're twins or not, though.
Okay.
Yeah,
I know they're very tight.
I went off. The train's going off the track, Steve. Quick, get us back.
I know. So let's, from the Sens perspective, only one pair of brothers have ever played for the Ottawa Senators, both of them. There have been lots of Ottawa Senators who have brothers who play in the NHL. You know, Brady Tkachuk immediately comes to mind after the Stanley Cup final, but there's only been one brother act. They both played for the Ottawa Senators, but never at the same time. So unlike the Blues, who've had it at least 3 times, where brothers play together at the same time, and the Josephs in St. Louis and all that, on top of that. Do you know, though, the only Ottawa Senators brothers who played for the team?
All I can think of is I know that Turgeon played here, and his brother, obviously, and I know that Gord Dineen's brother played in the NHL. Did Kevin Dineen never played in Ottawa? Did he?
Oh, yeah. That's it.
No. Kevin Dineen played for the Ottawa Senators?
Certainly did. He certainly did. I remember at Stanley's restaurant at the Sensplex for a long time, because they kept track of all the Sens captains over the years. They had Kevin Dineen's photo up there. But Gord Dineen was the actual co-captain back in the day. I believe that one year was Mark Lamb, Brad Shaw, and Gord Dineen in the first or second season, I think it was. The 3 of them were co-captains, so they all sometimes wore the C. And but a bar at the Sensplex, Stanley's, felt otherwise. It was actually, they thought it was Kevin Dineen. Anyway, who cares?
Really? I don't even remember Kevin Dineen playing here. I liked Kevin Dineen. He was a good hockey player.
Did he coach the national women's team briefly?
He did.
5 or 6 years ago?
Yeah. And he coached the NHL too.
Yep.
He did coach the women's national team. He came in late. They fired the guy, or the guy quit just before World Championships or just before an Olympics, like maybe with a month to go. And Kevin Dineen came in and led them to gold. But yeah, I didn't.
Now, former Ottawa
playing here. But anyway, sorry. Go ahead.
Former Ottawa Senator head coach Dave Cameron is going to be back with our World Junior Team Canada men's team, U20. He got that assignment this week, and it's going to be a good one because it feels like all Ottawa all the time. Cameron, the 67's head coach now, former Sens head coach, and he's going to be coaching Team Canada at the tournament here in Ottawa. I am very much looking forward to that at Christmas. How about you?
Oh, yeah, always. I filled out an online form there to be a volunteer for the tournament, Steve. You should look into that. That might be kind of fun.
Like, yeah. What kind of stuff are they looking for?
Well, there's like 15 different positions, and what 3 do you want first choice or whatever? I put down driver. I thought that'd be kind of cool. I'd pick people up at the airport. I had something work in the VIP lounge, and I don't remember what the third one was, but I did fill out an online application to be a volunteer for the World Juniors this year. Always loved the World Juniors.
Maybe I can sing the anthem before Kazakhstan versus Slovakia or something like that.
Sure.
Because I don't know that I know the Kazakhstan national anthem, but I'm willing to learn it.
Yeah.
And well, we'll see. But Dave Cameron will have an assistant coach, and he is one who is familiar to you, one Sylvain Favreau.
Yes,
who's head coach in the Quebec Major Junior Hockey League. So tell me about your connection to him.
I connected with Sly back in the day when he was still playing later in his career in the CJHL. He played in Gloucester. And then he got into coaching when he was an assistant with the Gloucester Rangers when they were a junior A team, and then was the head coach there. Briefly spent some time at Cumberland, and then he went out down east, where he coached in Halifax with the Mooseheads, won a Memorial Cup there as an assistant, then took over as head coach. Last season was in Drummondville as the head coach and won the championship of the Quebec League, went to the Memorial Cup. He was with the U18 team at the Gretzky-Holinka tournament that won a silver, and now he's on Dave Cameron's staff. Like, the kid's come a long way. And I wish him the best. I was trying to remember the word, and you helped me. I believe it is protege. If I'm a mentor, he's a protege. But good luck to Sly. He's a good kid. I wish him the best.
Nice. Good stuff. Now, let's move along to the roster as it lies for the Ottawa Senators this fall. Like, where on a scale of 1 to 10, before we get into that, are you on Steve Staios' impact on this roster? We expected big change. I think Steve Staios delivered. On a scale of 1 to 10, what kind of impact has Staios had on this hockey club right now?
Well, as I look at it now, assuming David Perron is going to be in the top 6, I'm assuming Michael Amadio is on the third line. Those are your two biggies. Let's say Perron is in and Tarasenko is out. Let's say Amadio is in and Kubalik is out. His only other real change up front, I guess, is the Gregor kid comes in, and does he take, I don't know, Joseph's spot? I guess Joseph. I mean, Joseph. Let's say Amadio and Gregor are in. Joseph and who did I just say? Kubalik are out. On the blue line, obviously, there's a change there. Jensen's in and Chychrun's out, and in goal, you've got Allmark in and Korpisalo out. I'd say he's done a pretty good job so far. I know he wants to do more, but that fourth line needs an upgrade. I think the 5-6 D pair needs an upgrade, but he's definitely had an effect at this point so far. And obviously his draft, I don't know how much of that was him, but a lot of big boys drafted that look like behemoths out there at that development camp. So he's definitely had some impact so far, but I really don't think his offseason's done. I think there's more to come here.
I would say that when I ask that question of people on various podcasts and such, I would say that probably 8 times out of 10, I never get the answer. Like, I ask for a scale of 1 to 10 on the level of impact they've had, and they never give me a number. They do just what you did. It's a fascinating thing to me. I'm a good solid 8 because Staios.
Yeah, I was going to say 8.
Staios did a ton here.
Yeah,
I think, and I'm actually pumped. I think I said in the last episode that I feel like this team. I know, joke about it all you want, but I feel like the team has finally well balanced. I feel like they can make the playoffs for the coming year. I felt that way the last couple of years. I get that, but I think that what we didn't really understand as much that I think we've all been educated by this rebuild process here, seeing the importance of not just knowing how to identify a great young player, but it's about identifying how to construct a well-balanced team with all of the ingredients it needs to be a playoff team. And it felt to me over the last 2 weeks that Staios is a chef who knows what he's doing in that department. How about you?
Yeah, it looks that way. I agree. And he identified it from day one, like basically his first press conference when he was named interim GM at the time, after Pierre was let go. He talked about finding 200-foot players, finding professionals, finding well-rounded quality character people who could still play the game. And that being a glaring weakness, a deficit up front, especially on this team. And he's gone out and done that so far. I still think there needs to be more. He's got to find more. But so far he's delivered on what he said he was going to do.
I think the Perron signing is actually a replacement for Vladimir Tarasenko in a way. They could have, taken a, better run at Tarasenko maybe than they did. It didn't sound like Staios was that interested in bringing him back. He brought in a guy in Perron who's probably a guy at this stage of their careers similar to Tarasenko in terms of what they'll be able to put up points wise. And that would be in that 45 to 55 point window. But Perron brings a little snarl, probably a little more commitment to defense at this stage of the game. And it even, roster-wise looks that way as well because Perron was in Detroit last year. Now he's in Ottawa. Tarasenko was in Ottawa last year. Now he got signed by Detroit. He had that little Stanley Cup stop in Florida in between. But it ends up being, actually, if you're comparing, start of season roster to next season's start of season roster, it really looks like a Perron for Tarasenko situation. But at forward, you've got a roster that right now only has 11 guys on the NHL roster signed up. And so the question becomes, how do you fill that? Is it going to be with one of the guys in the minors, or is it going to be maybe with one more free agent signing? They do have $3.6 million to work with. I'm sure they'll want a little buffer room in there as well. So I wouldn't think they'd go out and get a guy at 3.6, but they do have that money available to them.
I think they've got money to get two guys. I think they've got money to find a guy to play on the fourth line and to find another defenseman. I'm okay with the acquisition of Jensen. Not a problem. I just keep looking at 5-6 here, and I see Clevin, JBD, and Hamonic. There needs to be another guy there. There needs to be another upgrade on those three guys to play D there. And up front, your fourth line that I have, I wrote it all down here, Steve. I prepared for the show.
Nice.
I've got a fourth line of Gregor, Ostapchuk, and McEwen. Like, that needs to change. So whether that change comes from within, as you alluded to, is it a Cruikshank? Is it a Yarventi? Is it Halliday, who had a great playoff and a nice little run here after signing late in the year coming out of school? But somewhere, Matthew Highmore. I just think that Gregor, Ostapchuk, McEwen doesn't do enough for me. I want another guy in here. I want one more signing up front.
Does that mean you don't like McEwen? Is because I think the other two guys
not a fan of McEwen,
right?
No, and I think it was shown as the year went on, right? Like he was less and less required, less and less, to the point that they sent him down and paid him good money to play in Belleville at one point, or for most of the season actually. He doesn't bring anything. I think what he does bring is not required in today's game to the extent that it needs to be exclusive to one guy. I think that when it's the only real thing you bring, the physical toughness, the presence, the fighting, let's be honest, I think you've got enough guys, bigger, stronger guys who can play regularly and contribute some offense, who can take care of themselves. I don't think that you need Zach McEwen on the ice every night.
Well, it's certainly better. I don't know there's many guys who drop the gloves. I mean, they got bigger, they got more physical, they got a little more snarl, but I don't know about that many guys still dropping the gloves. You've lost Kastelik now. If McEwen comes out of that lineup, that to me puts a little extra pressure on Brady Tkachuk, but that's the way the game seems to be going anyway. Another angle on Perron, getting back to him for a second. Shane Pinto's been wearing 57. A lot of people said, yeah, that looks like a temps number. That looks like you're up from the minors for a game, or you're, deep on the depth chart in the development camp. But 57 seems to be what he's stuck with. He was handed that and he's rolled with it. Everybody's thought, okay, he probably wants 22 at some stage, but Zaitsev's got that, and he didn't go to that right away. He's stuck with 57, but now David Perron comes to town, and guess what number he has? 57. Yeah. And Perron Pinto agreed to give it up to Perron. And so Pinto's actually going to wear number 12 for the coming season. I don't know.
He wore 12.
Pinto. Sorry?
He has worn 12. Look it up. He did wear 12, and he gave it up to Kastelik. He did wear 12 at one point and gave it up. He wore 57 first. Then he switched to 12. And then when Kastelik came along, he gave it up to Kastelik and switched back to 57.
Okay.
If I'm not mistaken.
He wore 12.
If I'm not
I'll
mistaken.
Look that up.
Yeah.
All right. But nice of him to do that. I think about the movie. Remember the movie The Fan with De Niro and Wesley Snipes?
Yeah.
And that ended up quite badly. So I always say, the young guys should always give up the number to the veteran. Not to say that anybody's getting stabbed like they were in De Niro's film The Fan, but it's always a good idea. It's always nice when the veteran comes in to give him the number that he's had for 1,100 games, something like that.
How do you feel about those kind of numbers? I'm not a fan. Like the highest number of the team should be 28. That's the end of it. Like, I'm not a fan of it. I prefer. I like Jacques Martin.
It's one of those things where, as time marches on, I get used to it. Initially, I was very upset when the home team stopped wearing white, and that became the road team's domain. That bothered me for a long time, and then it just faded as we went along. The name, the Ottawa Red Blacks, hated it so much for a good 5 years, but now I'm used to it. It's fine. And this is the same thing here. I felt exactly the same way. To me, any number over 30, maybe Tony O's 35, if we want to really make an exception.
Goalies are okay.
Yeah, fine. Yeah, whatever. I don't like it over 35. That was always my max number. But now I'm used to it too, so it doesn't bug me anymore. And it's one less reason for younger viewers to say, "Okay, boomer." I hate that. I hate that so much.
I still prefer white jerseys at home. Anyway, moving on.
That's fine. No, you're having a hard time evolving and letting go.
Evolving.
That's okay.
I've said it before. I'll say it again. Every team that comes in here, it's black versus white. Every single game you go to, it's black versus white. I don't like that.
All right, that's fair. I am so done with old school Christmas lights. The tangling, the burning out, the minus 30-degree installation dangling from a ladder. Goodbye Christmas lights. Hello Celebrite, your permanent holiday lighting solution. I've got them on my home right now. When it's daylight, they're absolutely invisible. But at nighttime, things come to life. Right now, with the beautiful weather, we're looking forward to Canada Day. And of course, the classic colors of Christmas. You can really make the lights dance, all controlled from your smartphone. And on those nights when there is no occasion or holiday, you can roll with just a beautiful, subtle white light. And the installation team from Celebrite Ottawa was fantastic. So you can keep on rolling with old school Christmas lights, or you can contact them today at celebrite.ca. Yay!
This is Ryan. Ryan would love to start his own podcast as a fun way to create content for all his platforms, to better connect with his customers and build a new audience. But Ryan isn't great with technology, and he has a lot of questions. What's the easiest way to record a high-quality podcast? Does he need to travel to a studio? What equipment will he need? How does he get his podcast online? What if he has an out-of-town guest? Capital Podcast had all of Ryan's answers. After a free consultation, we took care of everything for him. All Ryan had to worry about was jumping on the mic and starring in his own show. He's recording this week's episode right from his office. His expert guest this week is one of his customers who's in a Chicago hotel room. And Capital Podcast is online with them, making sure the final product is perfect. Easy, convenient, professional. Contact us today and star in your own show with capitalpodcast.ca.
All right, welcome back to the program. The name Rutger McGroarty is out there around the NHL right now. Very interesting prospect. University of Michigan star, checking in at over 6 feet, over 200 pounds, lighting it up in the NCAA ranks. He was a first rounder with the Winnipeg Jets. I want to say 14th overall. Don't quote me on that, but a high draft pick. And I believe captain of the World Junior team for Team USA. So the Jets are in a mode of, okay, we'd like you to come and play for us because we drafted you and you're a very good prospect. And apparently McGroarty is of the opinion that if he's to sign with the Jets, he needs a guarantee that he's going to play in the NHL. I'm not a fan of that, but I certainly am a fan of the player. What is your feeling about, we just talked about the Sens, for example, having 11 forwards on their NHL roster under contract. They could go with a trade. They could go with free agency. They could pull someone up from the minors. And if you're talking about a trade, should the Sens maybe think of doing something to bring in Rutger McGroarty?
I think that would be awesome. A trade would be just wonderful. A good hockey player. However, this bothers me. This bothers me when it comes to character and attitude and all those sorts of intangibles. Like minor hockey was a long time ago. Guarantees are long gone, my friend. You don't have any sort of guarantees now. The only guarantee is you sign this contract, you're guaranteed an opportunity to play for this team. And beyond that, it comes down to you and what you want to make of that opportunity. And it kind of bothers me that somebody is saying this, sort of making this demand. And I'm thinking to myself, do you really want to go through that? If that's the way he is now and he hasn't played a game yet, how's he going to be when he's on the roster? How's he going to be if he turns into a pretty good player and then he's not getting enough power play time? Or he thinks he can kill penalties too? Or, gee, coach, how come I don't get to play in the last 2 minutes of the game? Or, I'm better than this. Or, there's all sorts of permutations and other, what's the word I'm trying to think of, that come out of this down the road. Other things are going to come up, other consequences of making this decision now. If you guarantee a kid on your team, that's a spot on your team. It's not going to happen. Winnipeg is not going to guarantee him a spot on the team. He's either going to sign or he's not. And if he's not going to sign and he's available, then yeah, why not make a call and see what it would cost to get him out of there? Make a trade.
It's hard to say if it's a red flag or not. This may be an aggressive agent. We saw it with his Team USA teammate with the Philadelphia Flyers. The Flyers ended up with Jamie Drysdale out of it, and I'm gapping on the name.
Cutter
in Philly, right?
Cutter Gauthier.
Yeah. So I mean, I don't know whether to say that that's a problem player because of this. It's hard to say, but that's.
Do you want to find out though?
The player might be worth it. Yeah.
Okay.
It would come down to I'd love to sit in a room with the kid and get not have a beer with him because that would be illegal. I don't think he's 21 yet. Maybe he is. I don't know. But I'd like to sit down and talk to him and see what it's about. Everybody dreams of playing in the NHL, and if you can contractually force a team to put you on the roster, you have that leverage. You're that good a player. Maybe that's not that unreasonable. Maybe that doesn't mean you're a horrible person or a bad teammate. It is a slight red flag, I'll grant you. But, I'd want to have that conversation with the guy to see what he is about because he is a pretty special talent.
How much of it might be he just doesn't want to go to Winnipeg, right?
Ooh, maybe.
Right? Because all those red flags I mentioned, and then I said, Ottawa should go ahead and try to acquire him. I'm saying, try to acquire him and have the conversation with him. And find out, maybe it's just he doesn't want to play in Winnipeg. Maybe he doesn't want to play in Canada. We need to dig deeper. Whoever is going to acquire him or who's ever talking to him needs to do a deep dive here and find out exactly what's the motivation for this. Is it actually the agent? Is it mom and dad? Is it the player? Where is this coming from and why? What's the background story to this? And if it's just that he doesn't want to play in Winnipeg, then I'd be willing to bet if he doesn't want to play in Winnipeg, he probably doesn't want to play in Ottawa either.
Yeah. All the same circumstances, smaller market, bad weather, taxation, whatever you want to bring up. It would be, we're not here to bury Winnipeg because Ottawa would have some of the same stumbling blocks if that was a player's attitude. Moving on, Egor Sokolov's time as an Ottawa Senator has come to a close. I feel kind of badly right now because in the hockey news, I put out a headline, something along the lines of clock strikes 12, Cinderella story, Ottawa Senators close the book on Sokolov's Cinderella story, something along those lines. Then that story came out the exact day the guy's getting married. Oh, I can't keep track of when people are getting married, and I didn't trade the guy, just for the record. But Sokolov was traded away. He's now a member of the Utah Hockey Club. The Utah Hockey Club, and the Sens in return get forward Jan Jenik. What say you about the end of the line for Sokolov, who's the Belleville Senators' all-time leader in games played, goals, assists, and points?
Yeah, as we did discuss this last time too. I'm of this. My thoughts the same. He's a guy he's not tied to anyone, right? He was not he was kind of sort of, you might want to say, a reclamation project. He was a bit of a stretch, a guy who hadn't been drafted, passed over twice when the Senators took him, and it was a bit of a flyer in that sense. But he did have a great final year in junior before they did draft him. But in the end, he played 70 odd games last year. He had, I wrote it down. He had 21 goals. He was -7 of his 21 goals. 10 were on the power play. Angus Crookshank had 24 goals and was only -3, and only had 6 on the power play. So Crookshank's a better prospect. Sokolov, I think you're at the end of the road here. Like, what are we going to do with this guy? He's not going to make it up here. He's going to end up down there. Do we need him? Don't we need him? And you go out and make a trade for a player who you're more familiar with. In the case of Staios and Andlauer, this is a kid who played for them in Hamilton. So they just, a guy you have no ties to is on his way out the door, and a guy you know a little bit about is coming in.
Yep, the old Hamilton Bulldog connection arrives once again. Jenik looks like he's going to be, he had sort of the same background in that he lit it up in his final year of junior. He was drafted around 60 something, the way that Sokolov was. So he wasn't able to take the next step to the NHL level. They're both 2000. I believe they're 2000 born, both of them. So kind of similar players, but Jenik brings a component that Sokolov does not. The thing that kept Sokolov out of the NHL, and that's he's just a better skater.
Right.
And we'll see if anything equates from there. But really, it's not like 1980 when if you could put the puck in the net, nobody cared if you could score or not, or nobody could care if you skate or not, I should say. Today, though, really, isn't it a case of if your skating is just average or below average, you need not apply to the NHL anymore.
Yeah. The stats don't compare, but Sokolov's game compares to a Tim Kerr. A big body, not fleet of foot, who can score goals. That's what it comes down to. And it's just, that is not the way the Senators want to play. That's not the kind of player that they're looking for. I wonder who else might eventually end up being a casualty in this. Is Robbie Järventie, rather than Robbie Järventie getting a serious look at a fourth line or maybe even a third line spot in training camp, does Robbie Järventie end up being a casualty of this? Does Tyler Boucher end up being a casualty in this? There is a definite plan here in place that says we want big guys who can move. And I'm not sure that Järventie and Boucher can fit that, but I'm positive that Sokolov cannot.
When the Ottawa 67s won their last Memorial Cup, a guy named Matt Zoltek scored the overtime winner against Calgary in the final. It was amazing. It was at the Civic Center. And Zoltek looked at the time like a guy would be a good NHL prospect. That was the name that came to mind for me when comparing to Sokolov. Yeah. Just a big body, really good offensively in junior. Just unfortunately, the skating wasn't quite there. Yeah, I think LA drafted him.
LA, like a top 10. I want to say he was like 6th or 7th draft pick.
Like overall?
Yeah. Was he not a top 10 draft choice? I might be wrong.
Well, now I got to know.
Now you got to look that up. But yeah, same sort of thing, right? A big guy who just moves a little slower and he's playing junior. His body shape and his physicality allows him to gain space. Whereas other people use speed to gain space. In his case, it was size and muscle and strength that allowed him to gain space and could finish. The guy could score goals, and it just never worked out in the NHL.
Yep, 15th overall. He was 6'4", 210 pounds. He hung in there for a while, but not even at the AHL level. He played a number of years in the East Coast Hockey League, and then played for the Mississippi Surge, whatever that is, in the SPHL. It's a minor pro league that operated
Southern
from
Professional Hockey League. Yeah.
Okay, there you go. That's where he ended up near the end, and he's been out of hockey now for the last 13 years. So, blast from the past. Yeah, well, it's not that long ago. Not that long ago, is it? Anyway, you were bringing up the Plager brothers earlier in the show. That age that's big. And of course, the obvious one would be the Plager brothers. Everybody's like, what? Who? Anyway, we'll call it quits there, ladies and gentlemen. Don't forget that our website is sensnationhockey.com. The show is brought to you in part by the Hockey News, thn.com/Ottawa. You get your hockey news where they generally in the NHL, but we've got the brand new site. Well, we've been going for about a year now, but the new site that's devoted entirely to Ottawa Senators coverage. And we're going to kick that up here in the next couple of months. We've got some news to announce in the next little while. So check that out again, thn.com/Ottawa. Greg, enjoy your time between now and the next show, and we'll talk to you soon.
For sure. Thanks, Steve.